When I was pregnant, the tension with my furious mother-in-law reached its breaking point. The argument had taken a dark turn, and her sharp, cold words cut through me like a knife. My heart pounded as I stepped back, but before I could fully grasp what was happening, my enraged mother-in-law, her face twisted in fury, lunged forward with deliberate malice. The cruel woman shoved me with all her strength. I felt myself losing balance, tumbling down the grand staircase, each step sending searing pain through my body. My scream echoed through the hall. But what happened next was even more terrifying, leaving me frozen in shock and disbelief. My name is Ella Reed, and I'm 33 years old. I run a cozy cafe in the charming town of Maplewood, where the scent of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries fills the air. For the past 2 years, I've been navigating life as a single mother after losing my husband, Leo, in a tragic car accident. The pain of his loss never truly goes away, but my 8-year-old daughter, Sophie, has been my anchor, my reason to keep going. Sophie's energy and laughter are like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. Whether she's helping me in the cafe or exploring the nearby park, her adventurous nature constantly reminds me of Leo. Yet in the quiet moments, when the cafe closes and it's just the two of us in our small house on the edge of town, I can't help but feel the weight of what we've lost. Running the cafe keeps me busy, but some days the loneliness is overwhelming. I've come to accept that this is my life now, working hard to provide for Sophie and keeping Leo's memory alive for her. But as I would soon discover, life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. It was a crisp spring afternoon in Maplewood when Sophie and I decided to visit the park. The sun peeked through the clouds, casting soft light on the damp trails. Sophie loved to ride her bike at full speed, her laughter echoing through the trees. I sat on a nearby bench, answering emails on my phone while keeping one eye on her. "Mom, watch this," Sophie called out, pedaling faster with one hand in the air. My heart skipped a beat as I glanced up. "Be careful, Sophie," I warned, but her confidence had taken over. Suddenly, her bike hit a patch of slick mud and the handlebars wobbled. She screamed as she lost control. I dropped my phone and bolted toward her, my heart pounding. Before I could reach her, a man appeared out of nowhere, moving swiftly to catch Sophie just as she was about to hit the ground. "I've got you," he said in a steady, reassuring voice, gently setting her on her feet. Sophie clung to him, her wide eyes brimming with gratitude. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" I asked, pulling her into a tight hug. She nodded and turned to her savior with a smile. "He saved me, Mom." The man smiled warmly, brushing dirt from his jacket. He looked to be in his late 30s, with kind eyes and a relaxed demeanor. "I'm just glad I was nearby," he said. "I'm Jack, by the way." "Ella," I replied, still catching my breath. "And this is Sophie." "Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here." "It's no trouble," Jack said modestly. "Kids are fearless, aren't they?" From that day, Jack began appearing more often in our lives. At first, it seemed coincidental, an occasional wave at the park or a quick chat while Sophie played. But soon, his visits became more intentional. He started dropping by the cafe for coffee, staying to chat as Sophie eagerly shared her latest adventures. Sophie quickly nicknamed him Trail Jack, after learning he loved hiking and exploring the nature trails around Maplewood. Over time, his easygoing nature and genuine kindness began to break down my guarded walls. Jack's presence in our lives grew steadily. One day, he suggested we grab coffee together, somewhere other than my cafe. Hesitant but curious, I agreed. That simple coffee outing turned into dinner, and soon, long conversations that stretched into the late hours of the night. Jack wasn't just kind, he listened. He made me laugh in ways I hadn't in years and had a way of making both Sophie and me feel special. Sophie adored him. She insisted on bringing him small trinkets from her adventures, a shiny pebble from the park or a flower she'd picked. "Trail Jack is the coolest," she declared, beaming. Jack's ability to connect with Sophie melted my initial apprehension. He listened intently to her stories, played catch with her at the park, and even helped her build a birdhouse for the backyard. Slowly but surely, he became a part of our little world. One Saturday, Jack invited us to his cabin just outside Maplewood. It was a cozy, rustic place surrounded by tall pines, with a porch that overlooked a serene lake. He cooked dinner for us, a hearty pasta dish that Sophie declared the best ever. While Sophie explored the cabin, marveling at Jack's collection of nature photographs, Jack and I sat on the porch sipping tea as the sun set. I haven't felt this at peace in a long time, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Jack smiled, his gaze soft. You deserve peace, Ella. You and Sophie both. As the weeks turned into months, our bond deepened. Jack became a steady presence in our lives, planning little surprises like leaving wildflowers on my cafe counter or bringing Sophie her favorite cookies. He even attended Sophie's school play, surprising her with a bouquet of daisies. The way her face lit up made my heart swell. As the months passed, Jack became a constant source of joy for Sophie and me. He wasn't just part of our lives anymore. He felt like family. One crisp autumn evening, he invited us back to his cabin for what I thought was a quiet dinner. Sophie was unusually excited, her energy bubbling over as she kept saying, "Mom, you're going to love tonight." When we arrived, I noticed the backyard was decorated with strings of fairy lights that sparkled against the darkening sky. A small fire crackled nearby, and the table was set with dishes I recognized as my favorites. My heart skipped a beat, but I brushed it off, not wanting to read too much into it. Jack led me to the center of the yard, where he stood beneath a canopy of lights. Sophie dashed ahead, taking a seat by the fire and grinning from ear to ear. Jack reached for my hands, his eyes meeting mine with a look so sincere it made my breath catch. "Ella," he began, his voice steady but full of emotion, "you and Sophie have brought light back into my life in a way I never thought possible. You've shown me what it means to have a family. I can't imagine a future without you both." Tears welled in my eyes as Jack knelt down, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. He opened it to reveal a delicate silver ring adorned with a small sapphire. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Before I could speak, Sophie leapt up and shouted, "Say yes, Mom. Please say yes." I laughed through my tears and pulled Jack to his feet. "Yes, Jack. 1,000 times yes." Sophie squealed with joy, throwing her arms around us. "We're going to be a family," she said, her face glowing with excitement. That night, under the canopy of twinkling lights and with Sophie's laughter echoing around us, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: hope. Jack wasn't just someone who had saved Sophie that day in the park. He had saved us both. Soon after our engagement, Jack couldn't wait to share the news with his family. I was nervous, but I wanted to make a good impression. Jack's mother, Clara, lived in a grand estate on the outskirts of Maplewood, a stark contrast to our simple, cozy lives. From the moment I stepped through the tall oak doors of Clara's mansion, I could feel her disapproval. Clara greeted us with a handshake that was firm but cold, her sharp eyes scanning me as though she were searching for a flaw. "So you're Ella," she said, her tone clipped. "Jack's mentioned you." Her words were polite, but her demeanor was anything but welcoming. I felt Sophie's small hand squeeze mine as she picked up on the tension. Clara's gaze shifted to Sophie, who stepped forward, holding out a small bouquet she had picked on the way. "I brought these for you, ma'am," Sophie said with a bright smile. "How thoughtful," Clara replied, taking the flowers and placing them on a side table without so much as a glance.
She turned back to me.
"Raising a child and running a cafe, quite a challenge, I imagine." "It's fulfilling," I replied, keeping my tone light. "Sophie and I make a great team." Clara's thin smile didn't reach her eyes. "Jack has always been ambitious. It must be difficult for you to keep up." The rest of the evening was a minefield of subtle insults and veiled criticisms. Clara questioned everything about me, from my modest dress to the way I managed my business. Jack noticed my discomfort and tried to shift the conversation, but Clara's judgment hung in the air, thick and suffocating. By the time we left, I was emotionally drained. In the car, Jack reached over and took my hand. I'm so sorry, Ella, he said softly. She'll come around. She's just protective. I forced a smile, though doubt churned in my stomach. I hope so. But deep down, I knew Clara's disapproval wasn't just protectiveness, it was personal. As the weeks passed, Clara's interference in our lives intensified. She inserted herself into every aspect of our wedding planning, transforming what should have been a joyful time into a constant source of stress. I heard you were considering a small ceremony, Clara remarked during one of her uninvited visits. That simply won't do. Jack deserves a grand celebration, something befitting his stature. Without waiting for my input, she began listing extravagant venues and services, all far beyond what I had envisioned or could afford. When I showed her my dream wedding dress, simple, timeless, and perfect, she wrinkled her nose. It's fine, she said dismissively, but Jack's bride should wear something more sophisticated. This wedding will have important guests after all. Reluctantly, and for Jack's sake, I selected a more ornate dress that didn't feel like me at all. Jack noticed my disappointment. You're going to look beautiful no matter what, Ella, he assured me. Don't let her ruin this for us. Despite his support, Clara's relentless criticism continued. She took control of the guest list, adding people I didn't even know, and frequently reminded me that I didn't come from their world. It's a shame you don't have more connections, she commented during a wedding planning meeting, her tone dripping with condescension. Jack has always moved in certain circles, and it might be hard for you to adjust. I clenched my fists beneath the table, fighting the urge to respond. Instead, I smiled tightly. Jack and I will find our own way. Clara's smile was icy. Let's hope so. Despite my growing frustrations, I tried to keep the peace for Jack's sake. But the cracks in my patience were beginning to show, and I knew it was only a matter of time before something gave. Amid the stress of wedding planning, Jack and I received unexpected news that brought us joy. We were expecting a baby. It felt like a fresh start, a symbol of the life we were building together. I was nervous about how Sophie would react, but when I shared the news during dinner one evening, her excitement melted all my worries. Does this mean I'm going to be a big sister? Sophie asked, her eyes lighting up. Yes, sweetheart, I said, tears of joy welling in my eyes. You're going to be the best big sister ever. She squealed with delight and threw her arms around me. I can't wait. I'll teach the baby everything I know. Jack beamed, pulling me into a warm embrace. This is the best news, he said, his voice thick with emotion. A few days later, Jack called Clara to share the happy news, hoping it might soften her attitude toward me. I stayed in the next room, nervous but hopeful. Mom, I overheard Jack say, Ella and I have some wonderful news. You're going to be a grandmother. There was a long pause before Clara responded, her tone sharp. A grandmother? Are you sure this is good news, Jack? Have you even considered if the baby is really yours? I froze, the words cutting deeper than I could have imagined. Mom, how can you say that? Jack's voice was filled with anger. Of course the baby is mine. Jack, she continued, unrelenting, a woman like Ella could use a pregnancy to trap you. You've always been too trusting. I clenched my fists, tears streaming down my face as Jack defended me. You're out of line, Mom, he said firmly. I love Ella, and we're building a family together. You need to stop. But Clara didn't stop. A few days later, Jack confessed that she had gone even further. She hired a private investigator, he said, his face clouded with anger. She's determined to find something to use against you. What does she expect to find? I asked, my voice shaking. I've done nothing wrong. I know that, Jack said, pulling me into his arms. And I told her as much. But she doesn't listen. She's determined to control everything. Knowing someone was digging into my past left me on edge. I began glancing over my shoulder everywhere I went, and the stress took its toll. Sophie noticed my unease and tried to cheer me up with her usual antics, but the weight of Clara's actions was undeniable. Despite the strain, Jack remained by my side, steadfast and supportive. We'll get through this, he promised. No matter what. Clara extended an invitation for dinner at her mansion, claiming she wanted to start fresh. Jack was optimistic, urging me to accept, but I couldn't shake the feeling that her motives weren't genuine. Maybe this is her way of coming around, Jack said, trying to reassure me. I hope so, I replied, though doubt churned in my stomach. For his sake, I agreed to go. That evening, I dressed in a modest navy blue dress, trying to keep my nerves at bay. Sophie, ever the optimist, was excited. Don't worry, Mom, she said with a grin. You're the best. The mansion loomed large and imposing as we arrived. Clara greeted us with her usual veneer of politeness, her sharp eyes scanning me and Sophie with a faint air of disapproval. Dinner was served in the grand dining room, the long table adorned with expensive china and crystal glasses. Despite the elegant setting, the atmosphere was icy. Throughout the meal, Clara's subtle barbs chipped away at my composure. So, Ella, she began smoothly, how is your little cafe? It must be quite a challenge balancing that with raising a child, especially now that you're expecting. I forced a smile. The cafe is doing well, thank you. And Jack and I make a great team. Her lips curled into a thin smile. Let's hope you can keep up. Jack tried to shift the conversation, but Clara's remarks only grew more pointed. By the time dessert was served, I felt like I was holding myself together by a thread. Excusing myself to the restroom, I welcomed the brief reprieve. As I stood at the top of the grand staircase, trying to calm my nerves, I heard footsteps behind me. Clara's voice was sharp and cold. You'll never be good enough for my son. I turned slowly, my heart pounding. I'm not trying to prove anything to you, Clara. Jack and I love each other, and we're building a family, whether you approve or not. Clara stepped closer, her eyes blazing with fury. You're nothing but a burden. I won't let you ruin his life. Before I could respond, Clara lunged forward. Her shove was deliberate, and I lost my balance, tumbling down the stairs. Each step I hit sent pain radiating through my body until everything went black. The last thing I heard was Sophie's terrified scream. Mommy! The first thing I noticed was the sterile smell of the hospital. My body ached, and when I tried to move, a sharp pain stopped me. Slowly, I opened my eyes to see Jack sitting by my bedside, his head buried in his hands. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by visible worry. Jack, I croaked, my voice weak and raspy. He looked up immediately, relief flooding his face as he took my hand. Ella, thank God, he said, his voice trembling. You're awake. My mind felt foggy, but the memories of what had happened came rushing back. The dinner, Clara's cruel words, the shove, the stares. Panic gripped me as my hand instinctively moved to my stomach. The baby, I whispered. Is the baby okay? Jack's hand tightened around mine, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. He's here, Ella. Our son is safe. They had to perform an emergency C-section, but he's healthy. Tears of relief streamed down my face. I need to see him, I said, my voice cracking. Jack pressed the call button for the nurse, who soon wheeled in a small bassinet. Carefully, she placed a tiny, swaddled baby into my arms. I looked down at my son, his tiny fingers curling against my chest.
He was perfect.
Love overwhelmed me, even as tears of pain and joy mingled together. We named him Liam, Jack said softly. I thought you'd like that. I nodded, unable to speak as I cradled our son. But the peace of the moment was short-lived as the memory of Clara's actions resurfaced. My voice trembled as I looked at Jack. Your mother, she pushed me, Jack. She could have killed me. She could have killed Liam. His jaw tightened, and anger flashed in his eyes. I know, he said firmly. Sophie saw everything. She told me, and I've already spoken to the police. My heart ached at the thought of Sophie witnessing such a terrifying moment. Where is she? Is she okay? She's with my sister, safe, Jack reassured me. She's been so brave, Ella. She gave a statement to the police. Clara has been arrested. Hearing those words was a strange mix of vindication and sadness. Clara's actions were unforgivable, but she was still Jack's mother. She could have killed us, I whispered, holding Liam closer. How could she do this? Jack's voice was steady as he responded. She won't hurt us again. You, Sophie, and Liam, you're my family now. That's all that matters. The days following the hospital stay were a whirlwind. Clara was charged with attempted murder, and the trial quickly became the talk of Maplewood. The courtroom was packed with reporters and onlookers, all eager to see the downfall of the once powerful Clara Grant. Jack and I sat side by side, his hand firmly in mine, as the proceedings began. Sophie, though nervous, was determined to speak the truth. Watching my brave little girl take the witness stand was one of the hardest moments of my life, but I knew her testimony would be crucial. Clutching a small stuffed bear for comfort, she recounted the events of that night with a steady voice. Grandma Clara told my mom she wasn't good enough for Dad, Sophie said, her small hands gripping the edge of the witness stand. Then she pushed her. She didn't slip. Grandma made her fall. The courtroom fell silent as Sophie's words hung in the air. Tears welled in my eyes as pride for her bravery mixed with the pain of knowing she had to relive that moment. The prosecution presented a solid case, highlighting Clara's controlling behavior and overt hostility toward me. The defense tried to argue that the fall was accidental, but Sophie's detailed account, coupled with other evidence, left little doubt in the jury's mind. Throughout the trial, Clara remained stoic, her cold demeanor unshaken. She refused to look at me, Jack, or Sophie, her focus solely on maintaining the remnants of her pride. But when the jury returned with their verdict, her composure finally cracked. We, the jury, find the defendant, Clara Grant, guilty of attempted murder, the foreperson announced. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge sentenced Clara to 10 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for the first 5. Relief washed over me, though it was tinged with sadness, for Jack. Despite everything, I knew it was hard for him to lose his mother in such a way. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us for comments, but I kept my words simple. I did what any mother would do. I protected my family. In the weeks following the trial, life began to settle into a new rhythm. Clara's absence, though a source of peace, left a shadow over our family. Jack struggled with the emotional toll of losing his mother, but he never let it affect his unwavering support for me and the kids. Together, we focused on healing and building a brighter future. Liam quickly became the heart of our home. His tiny smiles and sweet coos brought a joy I hadn't felt in years. Sophie embraced her role as a big sister with boundless enthusiasm, constantly by Liam's side, singing him lullabies or showing him her collection of books and toys. One sunny afternoon, Liam took his first wobbly steps in the living room. His tiny hands stretched toward Jack, who knelt with open arms. "Come on, buddy," Jack encouraged, his voice filled with pride. Sophie clapped her hands, cheering him on. With a determined shuffle, Liam made it into Jack's embrace, and the room erupted in laughter and applause. "I knew he could do it," Sophie declared, grinning from ear to ear. Her excitement was infectious, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like our family was truly complete. In the evenings after the kids were asleep, Jack and I would sit on the porch of our cozy house in Maplewood, sipping tea under the starlit sky. The air carried a peaceful stillness, a stark contrast to the chaos we had endured. Jack often held my hand during these quiet moments, his voice filled with emotion as he reflected on how far we had come. "You've made us a family, Ella," he said one night, his eyes glistening. "I don't know what I'd do without you." I rested my head on his shoulder, a soft smile spreading across my face. "We've all made each other stronger, Jack. No matter what, we'll keep moving forward together." The months that followed were a time of growth, healing, and newfound happiness. Liam grew quickly, his laughter filling every corner of our home. Sophie thrived as a big sister, embracing her role with pride and love. And Jack continued to be the steady anchor that held us all together. Though Clara's actions had left scars, I refused to let them define us. Instead, I focused on the life we were building, one filled with love, resilience, and hope. My cafe became busier than ever, and Jack often stopped by to lend a hand or surprise me with a bouquet of flowers, reminding me that I was never alone in this journey. One afternoon, Sophie came running into the cafe, holding a crayon drawing she had made for Liam. "Look, Mom, it's us as a family," she said proudly. The picture showed all four of us, me, Jack, Sophie, and Liam, smiling under a bright sun. I couldn't help but smile as I hung the drawing on the wall behind the counter. As the seasons changed, so did we. Our family grew closer with each passing day, finding joy in the little moments that made life beautiful. We celebrated milestones like Liam saying his first words and Sophie earning a certificate for her school project. Each event was a reminder of how far we had come and how strong we had become as a unit. One evening, as the rain softly pattered against the windows, I sat by the fire cradling Liam in my arms while Sophie read aloud from her favorite book. Jack joined us, wrapping his arm around my shoulder, and I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Reflecting on the past year, I realized how much we had endured: grief, betrayal, and fear. But those challenges had shaped us. They had shown us our strength and brought us closer together. Our family wasn't perfect, but it was ours, built on love, resilience, and an unshakable bond. Looking at my children and the man who had stood by me through everything, I knew one thing for certain: we were unstoppable. No matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, as a family. And in that moment, as laughter filled our home, I knew that we had found our happiness again. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this heartfelt story of resilience, love, and family. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales. Your support helps us share more stories that touch hearts and spark conversations. Don't forget to let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Stay tuned for more stories, and thank you for being a part of our journey.